Welcome to the Welsh Yogi Podcast. Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine.
Welcome to the Welsh Yogi Podcast.
Thank you for joining us today. My name is Bhagavad-Gita Ben, and this is Gopal Roy.
Gopal, and then Charlie's in the background.
Charlie's on the camera.
We can see and hear him, but you can't.
He's unhearable because these mics are very singularly directional. But this is the greatest podcast currently being filmed out of Atma for now.
But there's another one after this, so then we'll have a bit of competition.
Yeah, exactly. But we're live from the Atma Lounge as our city centre hub of sort of well-being, meditation, all this kind of stuff. We're here in Cardiff Queen Street, capital centre. And yeah, it's a great place to come and get some food. Just pay what you can. Yeah, there's the plug. We're sponsored by Atma Lounge. And today we're reading the Sri Upanishad, which is a really great yoga text. That's all Sanskrit. Sanskrit's the oldest language, isn't it, Gopal?
According to my understanding, Ben, yes.
It's like a football pundit. Over to you, Gopal. No, but for real, like Sanskrit's very old. And
For real, is it?
for real, it's very old. And I've heard that all languages emanate out of Sanskrit. I don't know where I heard that, or if it's true, but you know, I keep telling people that. So.
Yeah, I've heard different things. You have like linguists, they talk about the Proto-Europeans, who they say, well, this was because I don't know if it was the British or the Germans. When the Germans, when they went to India, they were completely enamored and just fell in love with the philosophy, the culture, all these different things, you know. And there's old writings of travelers who previously went to India, and they're just reporting on the amount of opulence, natural opulence that was there. Wow. Then when the British went to take control of the country, they started undermining and rewriting the history of India. I mean, even recently when I was in India, I was speaking to some gentleman, and he was Indian, and he found out I was from the UK. And he was saying, yes, you know, the British, what they did to India was amazing. Wow. I love what the British did to India, because they're taught in schools. Yes, they gave us railroads and, you know. But if you actually look at the history, what the British did to India was completely abominable. They were, for example, they were jealous of the quality of cloth coming from India. They cut off the thumbs of all of the weavers.
Wow.
So they couldn't. They completely dismantled so much of the architecture, the beautiful buildings. They would just take the stones back to the UK and then rebuild stuff. Yeah. They absolutely raped the country. There's that jewel that was from a... Sorry? Say stop.
No, it's good.
There's a jewel that's from the... we'll get into the verse then. And then you just set me off now. It's from the Durga. It was a temple of Durga, and it was taken to... It's now in the Queen's crown. And wherever this gem, this diamond went before, it would cause destruction to the civilization that had it. What? And then ever since when it first came to the British Empire, that's when the British Empire started to
Wait, so you're saying
crumble.
that the Queen has Durga's stone in her crown?
Yeah, from a Durga temple.
Durga is like a kind of very destructive demigoddess, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the best way to explain it.
And the fact that you steal something from her temple.
Yeah.
You know.
And wear it in your crown. Like.
Anyway, so then you had these linguists, because we got onto it, but basically they thought, well, this Sanskrit language is so advanced, and because a lot of them are racist, they would say, oh, well, this beautiful language and culture and this amazing Vedic philosophy must not have come originally from these people, but they must have come from some other, you know, race, probably from somewhere near Europe, you know, that went down through India and populated India, sort of thing.
Yeah, so that kind of history is written by the winner.
Yeah, so now most linguists will say the oldest language is called Proto-European, which is a completely made-up language and a completely made-up culture and a completely made-up set of people. They've just sort of invented this imaginary civilization that they've sort of assumed existed just from bits and pieces of history and made up a language that they assumed existed just from looking at all other languages, even though there's no actual evidence for such a thing.
It's far out. I
So
didn't know any of
Sanskrit
that.
is actually the oldest language, and this other fabricated language that's sort of taught doesn't actually exist.
Interesting. I never even heard of Euro-Protean.
Proto-European.
Proto-Korean.
If
Never
anyone's
heard of that.
interested in, and we could send you a copy, and I think they sell them here in Atma, is Searching for Vedic India by
Oh, yeah.
Devamita Swami.
Yeah, there's a cool book. There's one I can see one on the bookshelf.
Mm.
I never read it, but I've heard good things. But yeah, so as we were saying, mantra. These are Sanskrit mantras.
Yeah, which is
After you went around India. No, that was interesting though. Bit of a history lesson for the history buffs. But yeah, we can just jump in if you like.
yeah. Go on, yeah.
13th
Do you
mantra.
want to start again?
Oh no.
Oh, Charlie said no. All right, fine. All right.
We're not starting again, everyone. That was cool. So I could just try and recite this Sanskrit. I'm not the best Sanskritist. I'm not very good at speaking English, to be fair.
Yeah.
Sort
No,
of.
you are. You are.
I feel like every word becomes one word.
I'm the same. I slur my words.
Slur.
Slur. Like I speak like. I just like.
I know what you mean.
I think it's coming from.
From Talbot, Swansea area.
Yeah. I spoke. My spiritual master said, "I've never heard the language spoken like that before." He said.
Yeah, we're going for it. We're making waves in the world. Anyad evahu sambhavad, anyadahu asambhavad, iti shushrumadhi ranang yenastadvichachakshire. This is Sanskrit. So it means that the English translation is said that one result is obtained by worshipping the supreme cause of all causes, and that another result is obtained by worshipping that what is not supreme. All this is heard from the undisturbed authorities who clearly explained it.
Mm.
And you said you got the word for word, like the line for line, is it?
Yeah, well, it just breaks it down a little bit in this Bodhini. It's like a study guide for the
Yeah,
Sri
yeah.
Upanishad. So, the first line, the main word seems to be this sambhavad, which is, Prabhupada describes in the purport, another word for it is Sambhuta, or the Supreme Lord.
Mm.
Basically, the source of birth and sustenance, as well as he who remains after annihilation. So, wasn't it in Vedic philosophy, you have this Jamadi Asayataha, which is search for that thing from which everything comes from.
Mm.
That would be like philosophers, that's what they endeavor to discover. What's the
Yeah.
source of all existence?
Source of all emanations. And then you said also something about how when all of this sort of material realm that we live in is finished and packed up,
Mm.
it also merges back into that, or it packs up. It's probably the wrong terminology, but like...
Yeah, well, that which, because that's the absolute truth, that which remains in existence before, during, and after
Yeah.
the manifestation of this material cosmic manifestation sort of thing.
Sounds cool, doesn't it?
So that's the absolute truth. So everything else is relative truth. It's like philosophical
Yeah.
terms, but, I depend on something else for my existence. If I exist or don't exist, still everything else doesn't depend on my existence to exist. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
that by which everything depends on it to exist. We exist because there's this source of all existence.
Yeah.
That like Krishna explains in the Bhagavad-Gita, just like pearls are strung on a
I
thread.
was thinking the same exact verse.
Uh-huh. So you can't see the thread. You take the thread away and the pearls just drop on the floor. So there's this, what is that truth by which is maintaining and manifesting everything that exists?
Yeah.
Consciousness, eternity, and all types of pleasure. And this is Sambhuta.
Yeah, Sambhuta.
So it's saying one result is obtained by worshipping or offering one's love and attention to the Sambhuta, and something else is obtained by worshipping the Asambhavat, or that which is
Yeah.
not the absolute truth, that which is a relative truth.
So would I be right in saying like you get one thing by Because like if you just worship the one pearl on its own, is that it's probably going down, zooming into that a bit more. But like, you know, like all of these different sort of temporary things that rely on that thread. If you worship them,
Yeah, if you try and you want something that's true. This is where this Jamadi Asayataha of the the Sanskrit philosophers are looking for the truth. So like science means to illuminate or to find the truth.
yeah,
So one result is obtained by understanding the truth and living in relationship to that supreme truth.
yeah,
And another thing is obtained by, living to the illusion, that which isn't true, that which. So.
it's interesting, isn't it? I was because what you just said about science, like I was listening to a lecture, this like Bhakti Yogi Ravinder Swarup, we was talking about him before the podcast, yeah, and he was talking about how like in the Bhagavad-Gita, people have heard of Bhagavad-Gita maybe, but Bhagavad-Gita is like this amazing yoga text where basically is a conversation between a warrior who's like freaking out on the battlefield, doesn't want to fight, he's losing his mind, and basically he wants to run off to the forest, and then he's got Krishna, who's his best friend and his chariot driver, who is this like supreme person, like the personality of God, you know what I'm saying? He's the guy that's saying everything's strung on me like pearls on a thread, like what we just referenced. But Ravinder Swarup was talking about how, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, by all the Vedas I am to be known. Yeah, what's the... Do you understand?
Vedas char sarva aham eva vidyaho vinandakrit veda vid eva chaham.
Yeah, exactly. So by all the Vedas I'm to be known. And like on one level, it's like, because the Vedas are these types of texts, these Sanskrit texts, right?
Yeah.
That's what Veda means, knowledge. So it's like Vedic knowledge. So Krishna says, by all the Vedas I'm to be known. But Ravinder Swarup, he presented it that like science means to know, right? Knowledge.
Yeah.
So by all the Vedas I'm to be known also means by all science I'm to be known. So he's presenting that actually the goal of all science is Krishna, is the absolute truth, which I thought was like really like mind blowing. Like all scientists are ultimately trying to discover the truth about reality.
Yeah, that's Vedanta,
Yeah.
isn't it? The end of all knowledge. So when you've like in a search for knowledge, like you get things, you get bits of this world and you put it under your microscope. So you're trying to discover something. So at the bottom of this discovery, when you've reached your conclusion, what is that end of all knowledge, the actual culmination and zenith point of all knowledge? That is Krishna. That is the supreme by which everything else comes from.
And that's the Sambhavit that we're talking about now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, so like the result of worshipping that is one thing, and then the result of worshipping something that isn't that is another, So your destination depends on what your goal is in one sense.
Yeah.
Because I guess when we're worshipping things, that's our goal, isn't it? Like if you worship a rock star, like secretly deep down you want to be like that rock star. You know what I mean? I want to be like that person. Whatever we worship is like where we're going.
Yeah, and that point about worship as well, because people might be like, well, there's knowledge, I want to discover something, but when you start to say words like worship, then we get into the realm of sort of dogmatic religious belief, I'm not going to worship anything.
Yeah.
But the point is that, the one thing is getting knowledge about things, but really where we actually get happiness and joy from is when we use that knowledge for relationship. So if you just look at just the elements of something, really the goal should be to establish a relationship. That's where you get real happiness and joy from, and that's where the knowledge actually becomes sort of very real, because once you've discovered something, really then you think, okay, well, how do I engage with this? How do I interact with this in order to, spice up my life sort of thing?
Yeah.
So that's where sort of the different levels of consciousness come in. Because if you just look at the material world and you're just analyzing it for the sake of knowledge, but without knowing how to use that in a relationship, then it's actually not a very high level of consciousness, because it's just like a baby will do that. A baby will just pick up stuff and stick it in its mouth, and if you're a scientist just for science sake, you'll just pick up stuff and just stick it under your microscope. But when one starts to evolve and understand, okay, there's these elements and this environment in this world. How best do I use that in a relationship or in my life? Then one starts to progress in human life, sort of thing.
Yeah, that's like the beginning of, like they say, like this transcendental knowledge, this Vedic knowledge is that knowledge of relationships, and that's Sambandhigana.
Yeah.
So it's not just like, okay, I know how this table is fit together, but like, you know.
But what
you
are looking, who's that conscious being that's understanding these things? You know, if you miss out this conscious element, then you're just wasting your time. Like.
It's like, who are we?
Yeah.
What is this world? Where does this world come from? Like,
yeah.
That's
'Cause
basically.
if you don't know who you are and where the world comes from, then what you're looking at, you know, these are fundamental questions in order to make everything fit into place.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're only looking at one part of the puzzle. Does that make sense?
I think so. To me, it makes sense. Does it make sense to you, Charlie? You got the nod.
Charlie's nodding his head.
Charlie just like one of those nodding dogs. No, but so this is one result is obtained, but then in the second part of the verse, you know, the mantra says, "All this is heard from the undisturbed authorities who clearly explained it." So it's like referencing like the source of knowledge. Like how do we hear knowledge? Do you know what I mean? Like it's like that's important because like on our own we can't figure anything out beyond like our senses and stuff like that, isn't it? We discussed that in the first episode or the second episode of the whole podcast about how like our like apparatus for interacting with this world is like flawed. What were the four? There's 4 defects. It's like we cheat, we make mistakes, we
can be illusion.
So we're like
imperfect senses.
Cause I'm just trying to think about because like we've been out on the street meeting a lot of people right recently. So like I'm trying to think like how would those people, if they were listening this far, if they got this far into the podcast, are they keeping up with what we're saying? Like, do we have to explain something a little bit more, like little basic principles, like about like the body and this, because like these teachings teach that we're a living entity and our body is just our vehicle, you know, and we'll use this body to interact with the world, but we're not the body itself. With that conscious spark within the body, you know. Yeah. So like that's kind of a fundamental principle.
Yeah, and I mean it's good to hear. I mean I need to hear it regularly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a lot of the time in these literatures, the same basic point will just repeated and be repeated, because even though it is like that, we do need to establish first fundamental principles and then build upon it.
Yeah.
You know, to get a deeper and deeper understanding. Still, you can't. Some of these fundamental principles are so important, and for us to realize them is something else. You know, like you can say, "Oh, you're not the body or spirit, soul."
Yeah.
But how much have I realized that? You know, I'll say, I'll speak like, I'm a spirit, soul, aloof from this body, but then I'll stub my toe and be like, no.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I
don't think you can hear these things too much.
Which is why though, you know, we've got this body, and this body is causing us to be distracted from, like, I guess, the truth of reality. You know what I'm saying? We are this fully knowledgeable spark of consciousness.
Say it again. The body is forcing you to be illusion, distracted from reality.
Yeah, we're being distracted by this body constantly. There's all of these, you know, like inputs coming out. Like if you think about, you know, we've got these different senses which are constantly gathering data. Constantly, there's always light coming into the eyes and forming images for us to like witness before our eyes.
So what would you say then because someone could say, well, it's not in one sense, I guess you could say you've been distracted by the body.
Yeah.
But, or is it because the body's a vehicle, right? So even a liberated soul has a body, and they have senses, but they're not being distracted by, because they've controlled their senses, right? Yeah. So is it the case are we getting distracted by our body, or are we just getting distracted by the fact that we're paying attention to the wrong things?
Yeah, it's like what we're identifying with, because like we were talking about this before as well. There's like you've got like different levels of development of consciousness. Like a lot of us in the modern like Western materialistic world, we're so bombarded with operating on this level of bodily consciousness. Charlie's just fallen asleep over there. No, we're being bombarded, like, you know, you're your body, you've got to enjoy your senses, you've got to, you know, all of this good sense data going in. You got to enjoy it, and that's like one base level of consciousness. But you can like sort of gradually develop higher and higher levels of consciousness through the process of yoga, right? So like what I'm talking about for someone who's like possibly on that bodily platform, like that base level, that animalistic level, you know what I'm saying? We are constantly being distracted by our body.
Yeah.
We are constantly being bombarded by. I'm talking for myself here, like.
Oh, I'm like that as well. Yeah.
You know, you see something you want to eat, you gotta go eat it, or you know, anything. There's like so many distractions that are taking us away from this kind of knowledge that we're a conscious spark.
What do you think about? Sorry, go on.
I was just drawing it back to this verse. How, you know, you need to hear it from an authority. So, you need to hear it from, because you were talking about self-realized souls a minute ago. Like you got to get in contact with someone who is not being distracted, who is seeing reality as it is, that isn't being like filtered by these constant desires. You know, so that's why it's important to hear this stuff from people who are more elevated than us, rather than people on the same level or lower level.
It goes back to that thing, isn't it? Like I met someone yesterday. It was mad. I was meeting all these people who claim to be psychic.
Yeah.
These guys, this one guy said he was really drunk though. He said, "Yeah, I'm psychic. I can, read people's minds, and stuff." I was like, "Oh, okay." And I just sort of passed over, whatever, But then the next person I met, he also said, "Yeah, I'm empathic."
I'm an empath. They say that, don't they?
Yeah. Do you know? So that's the same as psychic, is it?
I think it's you can really pick up on people's moods and their feelings.
He says he does read-ins and stuff.
Yeah.
He said he does read-ins.
I know what he does.
So anyway, he said I'm an empath. And he says, yeah, I'm really open and that. And he took a book. But I could tell he was one of those, that's like, you get these people. He'd been through some rough patches, you could tell, And he admitted, I think he went to jail and stuff. He was an ex-convict or whatever. But he was young and he was like, he had some youth in him sort of thing. So you could, at least I was picking up like, okay, yeah, he was just, he was a bit of a searcher. He wasn't a bad guy, He was just like, and and he was saying how he was just one of those people who was like, you could tell he was just free, like really open, just want to hear from everything and listen to everyone. And I had to say, like, I really appreciate how open-hearted you are and you're just really open to the world and ready to hear. But I said, but you got to be grounded at the same time, because if you open yourself to all different energies, then you'll get good and you'll get bad as well. And you could also have like someone speak to you who might not have the best intention or might not actually, because so many people say, everyone thinks they're a guru, sort of thing. So I was saying, you got to try and be grounded. You got to put up your guard a little bit. You got to be having some intelligence.
Yeah.
So that's why it's good to have a bit of doubt. Like you were saying, find someone who's free from the, imperfections of material existence, who's already further on the path. And to really find such a person, then we need to really be deep. We need to be thoughtful and really actually make that conviction that this is the mission of my life. I think if you make that conviction, like, okay, I'm making a serious, determined effort now that the goal of my life is to advance spiritually. And if you're very serious about that and sincere, then you will, come across the right path, the right people. Krishna will make arrangement.
For real.
But you have to be a little bit serious about it. It's not just like, oh, I want to be spiritual to help me, and because everyone's got like, this person's a goth, this person's like he's a rocker, this person's but I'm spiritual. It's not just a tag. It's actually self-realization, sort of thing. Anyway, I was thinking, yeah, he needs to. I told him you need to find a real teacher, but you need to be careful about, because so many people will say they're a teacher. You can tell he's very open and but he's opening himself for negative as well as positive.
Yeah, because that's what the verse says: is one result is obtained by following. Like we're talking about the pearls and the thread. Like if you follow one of these pearls, you don't know where it's going to take you. You might roll under the sofa and you're never seen again. Like, but like, there's many paths you can take, and they don't all lead to the end goal. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
not all. I mean, is it this purport? Prabhupada gives
Yeah.
that example that you can go to if you want to get a.
To Calcutta. Like,
If you want to go to Calcutta, you can't get. If you get a ticket to Bombay,
yeah,
you're not going to go to Calcutta.
exactly.
Not all roads lead to Rome.
Yeah, yeah. How do you reconcile that? Because in the Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna says,
Everyone follows my path in all respects.
yeah, he says, was it as those surrender to me,
Yeah.
I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects.
Yeah, because there is one path.
Yeah.
Now, on that path, you can choose to go any way.
Mm.
You know, it's like, so everyone follows my path. So there is a certain framework by which to understand Krishna,
Yeah.
but you know how you work within that
Mm.
is up to you. So like, there's a way, you know, there's a timetable for this plane takes you this place at this time.
Yeah.
This plane takes you this place to this time. Everyone follows the timetable in all respects.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, whether you're going to go to Bombay or not
Mm.
is your choice,
Yeah, yeah.
sort of thing. So I think that's what Krishna's saying. There is this is the way the world works.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, this is why he's explaining in Bhagavad Gita, this is the world, this is the way it works. And then at the end of it, he says to Arjuna, now that I've told you all this, you do whatever you like.
Who you want, like.
Yeah, do what you want.
That's the cool thing, like, we get the freedom to choose. Win or lose is up to you.
Mm.
Yeah. I don't know. It's deep, like. But no, it's nice. It's like the unexamined life is not worth living.
What do you say?
The unexamined life,
Unexamined life is not worth living.
not worth living. If you're not going deep and asking questions, because we got the capacity to ask questions. Like if you got a pet dog, I don't think he's sitting there thinking about the meaning of the universe. He's thinking about his next meal, isn't he?
Yeah.
Or like, oh, when's someone going to stroke me, or someone needs to let me out to go to the toilet. Like this is dog mentality, and it's so easy to get wrapped up in the similar mentality, but just in a more kind of luxurious way as a human being.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
Well,
which restaurant shall I eat? You know, which house do I desire to live in? You know, like this kind of thing. It's still on that base level of operating as a body, as like a.
Yeah. It's not progressive human life. Like Prabhupada would say, you know, it's progressive human life. Like you'd say, you know, dogs mate in the street, humans mate in an apartment, but it's the same activity.
Yeah.
And we just think human progress is being able to do these basic animal activities in a more and more polished way.
Yeah.
When this Vedic culture is saying, no, human progress is uplifting your heart and consciousness.
Yeah. Which is why that quote, it's one of the Greek philosophers. I can't remember who it was. But he said, the unexamined life's not worth living. Because you're just in that automatic mode and, you know, it's taking you where it's going to take you. Like the destination isn't going to be like true meaningful happiness and connection and love of the most lovable. Like it's it's going to be just more the same, just in a different repackaged,
different body,
same
stuff.
different body. Like no, but so yeah, let's start examining life, is it? But yeah. I really like in this purport as well. It talks about like
The last section.
yeah, like Shunvatam Sva Kata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Ridyanta Sta. Oh, I can't remember it now.
Vidrani Vidinoti
Vidinoti Saritsatam. So yeah, it's like saying that. I don't know.
So by hearing about Krishna, one's heart becomes
clean, like because you always hear that
clean, like, innit?
like you know, like purification.
Yeah, it becomes clean, like.
I don't know if anyone's heard of purification.
Purification in Wales.
Purification. The thing is, when you have water and it's all muddy and dirty, you apply a process of purification and it takes it back to its original state of water.
Yeah.
That's what purification means, isn't it?
Yeah, purification. One definition I heard was bringing something to its original state.
Yeah, that's what I just said, Gopal. No, I'm joking. But for real, like that's what when you hear about Krishna, when you hear about topics to do with transcendental knowledge, when you hear all this stuff, that's what that verse means. Shrinvatam Svagata Krishna. It means by hearing these things and developing an urge to hear these things, then all of the things that are troubling your heart are cleaned away. They're cleared away, and you're pulled back to that state of purity, that state of like. sort of uncontaminated, unfettered consciousness, which is nice, and it feels right. You know what I'm saying? So like we're talking about these different levels of consciousness. They're just different levels of coverings, different amount of mud mixed in with our water. Because like we're conscious beings, and we're trying to see this world in one way, but there might be a lot of mud on the windshield, you know. So that's the idea, is by hearing these things, and we'll get out of that animal consciousness eventually, you know.
Yeah, because I think in the purport, isn't it? One hears about Krishna, which draws the attention of Krishna.
Yeah.
Like this, we were saying this earlier, this Sambhavat, this absolute truth, this thread in between all the pearls is also fully conscious.
Fully there.
So hearing about Krishna draws his attention.
Yeah.
Krishna, like you said, uncovers the covering.
Yeah.
Tesham Satyutanam Bhajatam Proti Bhuvakam, Dadami Buddhiyogam Tam. Then the one starts to become more pure in their life. They become ecstatic and happy. And then it says the science of the absolute
Wait, hold
truth
up
is
there,
revealed.
though. Ecstatic and happy.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. Everyone wants to be ecstatic and happy, don't you? Like, yeah, I'd like a bit of ecstasy and a bit of happiness, but like the pure kind, not the put a pill in your mouth and then have a headache for a week.
I mean, that's the thing about real, like you hear like those who actually have real spiritual love, they have ecstatic symptoms.
Yeah.
But when they're ecstasy, like those, I think when Krishna was appeared in this world, he had one servant who was fanning him, and he was so much in ecstasy that tears were pouring out of his eyes, but the tears were in his eyes so much that he couldn't see.
Yeah.
And because he couldn't see, he prayed that the ecstasy that he was feeling, the bliss, the hairs were standing up on the end of his arms because he was feeling so much pleasure. He prayed that would go away because it was stopping him from engaging in loving service.
Yeah.
So that's another.
It's like completely selfish.
It's real love.
Selfless. Sorry.
We think, I want to be.
You're selfish, you are. You don't want to get rid of your blister, so no, selfless, like.
Because you think, you love someone so much that the spiritual pleasure that you experience is a byproduct of your love.
Yeah, it's deep, like.
You know, we're so materialistic, and so naturally our default is self, like Krishna says in the end of the 7th chapter, Icha Dvesha Smutena Dvandva Mohena Bharata. That everyone is, all conditioned souls are in this world, and they're in the world of duality.
Yeah.
And they're plagued by this desire and hate. How everyone is just in competition mode. You know, we're all in competition mode, and we want to be the best and put the others down. You know, this is a natural default position of the living entity in the material world. So when we think of spiritual life, it means I feel blissful.
Yeah.
And we talk about it like that in order to attract people. But ultimately, it's a type of selflessness and a type of real, genuine love where one actually has no regard for their own pleasure and is simply thinking about the pleasure of Krishna. But such an attitude, that brings the topmost bliss because it's real love. And in this material world, what goes under the guise of love is actually more of just a selfish sort of, I'll please you if you please me. We'll do a prenuptial agreement. And, So
it's beyond that. Yeah, sukha dukkha.
Yeah.
Nice. No, that's cool, but also ecstatic.
Yeah, it is ecstatic, yeah. I just wanted to... It's not tinged by any type of selfishness.
It's like high-level ecstasy. It's not like... You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not like some material thing. So what was next on the little list? So Krishna, he appears... You hear about Krishna. He cleans a bit of your heart.
You start to become qualified. Then the science is unveiled. So one starts to really understand the science of progressive spiritual advancement.
Yeah.
Then one becomes free from material attachments.
Then one becomes free from material attachments.
Then doubts of the mind are cleared, and then one becomes liberated soul and sees Krishna in every step of life.
Yeah, for one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me.
I'm
never lost to him and he's never lost to me.
Yeah.
It's all there. Like, that's what you say. It's a science. It's all there. It's not like some kind of like airy fairy. Yeah, you just sort of do something and then something happens. It's like there. You just start developing a little urge. What's the meaning of life? What these Krishna people are talking about? Let me hear a little bit about that. Let me read some of this book. And it's this process of unveiling this like truly ecstatic nature from within, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
That's what, and you hear about Krishna.
yeah.
Develop love for Krishna.
Mm.
And then that's...
And then all these like animal kind of mentalities goes away anyway, because it doesn't seem... Why would you want that anyway? You know what I'm saying? Like...
Yeah, like, what's the verse? One gives up Visha Vinar Vartante, Niri Hasade Hina, Raso Varjamra Priyasya, Pramjishvarna Vartate. That you give up a lower pleasure by experiencing a higher pleasure.
Mm.
So to think that, okay, I'll go to spiritual life and I'll just give up everything material. You can only give up something if you have something higher to replace it with.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Otherwise it is still material, you know?
Hmm.
Like renouncing something material is still material because it's relative to that original material thing. You know what I'm saying?
renouncing something material is still material.
Yeah, because you're like, you know, material life is terrible, so I'm not going to do any material activities. I'm just going to sit in a room. But it's still material because it's relative to that material thing. But we're on about like engaging in spiritual activities. Like,
Yeah, you're
like
still living in the realm of duality.
Yeah, you're still
say.
hot, cold, material, spiritual. It's still like this and that. Whereas the path of Bhakti is more of a synthesis of both, right? Isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, because if like you have Buddhists who say, oh, not this, not that, but you're still tied to the world of duality because your definition of spiritual life is just the opposite of the material counterpart.
Like a negation.
Yeah, so you're not transcending anything. You're just still within this realm of duality.
Yeah.
Well, actual spiritual life is you find the spiritual engagement for the soul.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's pretty.
So you have to experience. So yeah, like we were saying, Pramjishvarna Varta Day. Krishna explains in Bhagavad-Gita, you find the higher pleasure, and then you can give up the lower one. You know, it's not just.
It's like a natural thing, though, isn't it? It's like a natural thing. It's not like, yeah. Yeah,
it's like growing up. You know, it's like real spiritual life. You feel like, oh, I'm growing up now.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like when you're a kid, you play with your little. When I was a kid, I used to play with my little action figures, my Batman figures and stuff. Yeah, you can't see me.
You can't see me.
When I was a bit older. And then, but I used to think, I don't know why my parents just don't. Why aren't they playing? When I grow up and I earn my own money, I can just buy loads of figures, like toys. I just play with toys all the time.
It's a good idea.
Or, you know.
It's Warhammer, that is.
Like, why don't they just do that? Or I was thinking, like, so then when I was a little bit older, I realised, I don't play with those little toys anymore. Computer games is where it's at now.
Yeah, for real.
I remember one time I really wanted WrestleMania 2000 or something on the Nintendo 64. Or there's these different computer games. And I used to think, if I get that computer game, I could just play that for the rest of my life. You know, that one game. I'll just be happy for the rest of my life. I don't need anything else.
It's true. It's true.
But when you get a bit older, then there's something. So you naturally give up something when you find something superior.
Yeah.
You know, so it's the same thing in spiritual life. It's a growth. And when you hear about Krishna, that's you giving yourself the opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
At least give yourself the opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
And see what happens, isn't it?
And as simple as just developing the urge. That's where it begins, isn't it? You just have to. That's what that's Shrimvatam verse, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just develop an urge to hear a little bit like that, and it cleans you up, and you become blissful. And it was all happily ever after.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. I mean, it's real. You know,
it's hardcore. Hardcore.
We should talk about the real.
Yeah, it's hardcore. Like you face yourself. Like,
it's exciting.
You're cleaning it.
It's tough.
You know, if you clean a room, if you clean a dusty room.
Yeah, there'll be stuff in there. You're like, oh, I can't believe that was under my sofa. You know.
Yeah.
So similarly, if you clean your heart, it's like, oh, I didn't realize that was there.
Yeah. Ugh.
But you have to get dirty. Like, if you really want to clean something, you got to get your hands dirty. So similarly, cleaning our hearts, it's not just a sit in a cloud and rainbows affair.
Blissful.
You know, it's I gotta deal with myself.
Yeah.
I gotta see these things that are in my heart that I might not want to face them, but I have to face who I am and grow.
Yeah.
Growing pains. They say, when you go puberty and stuff, there's growing pains because your bones are growing.
Stretching out. Yeah, but it's all good. And
I'd like to talk next podcast. I'd like to talk a bit more about but the difficulties
Yeah.
of spiritual
Grit.
life.
The
The
grit.
difficulties and the challenge, like.
The gristle.
I like it.
I like this podcast though because we started off talking about Sanskrit and we spat so many Sanskrit bars out. If you get what I'm saying. Like,
I'm trying to go back into my Bhagavad-Gita learning, you know.
I'm reading that for the whole marathon.
Yeah.
We're on a little bit of a marathon at the moment, like book distribution
Reading
marathon.
Bhagavad-Gita throughout it.
Yeah, it's so good. It like vibrates.
I'm
Like,
forgetting all the second 2 lines of all my verses,
yeah.
so I can remember the first 2 or something.
It's alright though because you could just say the first 2 and just assume people know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, Mam Chayo Vyabacharine.
It's all there in the Bhagavad-Gita, you know.
It is the ABCs and the DEFGs. It's all of them, all the letters. But no, it's cool. Pick up a bag of Gita. We've got awesome. We're at the Atma Lounge as we started off mentioning. We got really good seminars that we're putting on. You have to book in because of COVID. You got to be social distance and all that.
Yeah.
But
Gotta be safe.
for sure, stay on the Atma social media because it's good. That's the cool thing. Now we're coming out of lockdown. We can start to like spend time with people and actually be there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
be
we could
physically there and talk about this stuff.
We should change the podcast maybe to a set time of like group
Yeah,
for our
live.
breakfasts,
That would be cool.
for our vegan breakfast meditation sessions.
We'll have a breakfast. We'll have a bit of podcast, talk a bit of philosophy,
Bit of yoga.
bit of yogurt, soy,
Yeah.
yogurt. Do you get it? I'm not really funny. Someone once told me I'm not funny and no one likes me.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was really heavy. So when I was in university, he just looked me in the eyes and said,
It's difficult. I find it difficult doing a podcast, like, because you're being filmed and you got to think about
you gotta sound smart as well.
what people are hearing.
I like it though. I think it's fun. Hopefully you've listened all the way. I've been Ben.
Hi, Krishna. I
No.
will go. Right, thanks, everyone. Well, we'll see you. And anyway, please get in touch. Give us some feedback. And we'll start having guests. If anyone would like to be a guest, then message. And
Yeah.
come on. Like,
Come on, like
why not? More merrier.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. We've been the Welsh Yogis. Gopal, Ben, and Charlie. Charlie, you need to get another mic work in. He's had the job of trying to getting 3 mics on this thing.
Yeah, it's been going on for
He's dragging his heels, but we need to get his voice.
a good 6 weeks of Haribol.
How about?
Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda